The hallway smelled like bleach and stale coffee. It was 11:47 p.m. Mara had been awake since 4:30 that morning. She'd worked the breakfast rush at the diner from 5 to 11, run straight to her lunch shift at the sushi bar from 11:30 to 3, rushed across town for the dinner service at the steakhouse from 4 to 9, grabbed a protein bar from her glove compartment, and finished the night scrubbing floors at the Italian place from 9:30 until closing. Tomorrow she'd do it again, with the cafe shift squeezed in somewhere between sleep and survival. Her hands still reeked of fryer oil. Her apron was damp with sweat that had dried and dampened again throughout the day. Every muscle in her body screamed for rest. Her calves burned from standing. Her shoulders ached from carrying trays. Her lower back throbbed from bending over tables. She had 3 hours before she needed to wake up and do it all over again. 3 hours. That was all the time she had to be human instead of a machine. She dropped her duffel bag by the door and kicked off her shoes. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. She just needed to collapse into bed. Just needed to close her eyes. Just needed. Then she heard his voice. Leon's voice, coming from the bedroom. Loud. Relaxed. The way it used to sound back when they first met. Back when she thought he was ambitious. Back when his dreams felt like their dreams. "Man, I'm telling you, I got the best setup," Leon said. Mara froze, her hand halfway to the light switch. There were other voices in the background. Male voices, laughing. He had someone on speakerphone. "She works 5 restaurants," Leon continued, and Mara could hear the smile in his voice. 5. Breakfast place, sushi joint, steakhouse, Italian spot, and some cafe on her days off. She's like a machine. "And you just, what? Sit at home?" one of the other voices asked. "Pretty much," Leon laughed. "I mean, I'm looking for the right opportunity, you know. That's what I tell her. But man, why would I mess up a good thing? She thinks we're paying down my debts together. She thinks we're a team." The laughter that followed made Mara's stomach turn. "That's cold, bro," another voice said. But he was laughing too. "Cold? Nah, that's smart," Leon replied. "I made some mistakes, yeah. Got in over my head with the food truck thing, took out some loans I shouldn't have. But why should I suffer? I've got myself a personal ATM who thinks she's being a good wife." Mara's hand fell from the light switch. Her duffel bag slipped from her other hand and hit the floor with a soft thud. But the voices inside the room didn't stop. "What about that girl? What's her name? Vivienne?" someone asked. "Oh yeah, Viv's still around." Leon's voice took on a different tone, softer, warmer. "She doesn't know about any of this debt stuff. She thinks I'm doing well. I take her to nice places, buy her things. She's fun, you know, not exhausted and resentful like Mara." "You're using Mara's money to date Vivian?" The voice sounded almost impressed. "Where else would I get it?" Leon laughed again. "Mara works so hard she doesn't even look at the bank statements anymore. She just deposits her checks and keeps grinding. I use what I need for my personal life. She thinks every penny is going to bills and debt. She's so tired she can't think straight." Mara backed away from the door. One step, then another. Her legs felt disconnected from her body. Her chest felt like someone had reached inside and torn something vital loose. 2 years. 2 years she had been working herself into the ground. 2 years since Leon came to her with tears in his eyes, saying he had made mistakes with the food truck, that the business had failed, that he had debts he couldn't handle alone, that he needed her help just this once, that he would never let it happen again, that they were partners, that marriage meant facing problems together. She had believed him. She had loved him. She had promised to help him climb out of the hole he dug. So she took on a second job, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. She wore the same rotation of work clothes until they were threadbare. She cut her own hair over the bathroom sink. She gave up her gym membership, her book club, her Sunday morning yoga classes. She stopped visiting her sister Kayla because she couldn't afford the gas for the 2-hour drive. She ate ramen and day-old bread from the bakery discount rack while Leon ordered DoorDash. And he had been laughing at her. He had been calling her his personal ATM. He had been using her money, her tips, her wages, her 18-hour days to date another woman. Mara found herself in the kitchen, staring at the sink full of dishes. Leon's dishes. The breakfast bowl he'd left this morning. The lunch plate from this afternoon. The takeout containers from dinner. Dishes she would wash before bed because he never did them. Dishes that would be dirty again by tomorrow because he would eat and leave the mess for her. Her hands started to shake. Then her arms. Then her whole body. She gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. The laminate was cool under her fingers, slightly sticky from something Leon had spilled and not cleaned up. She had chosen this countertop when they moved into this apartment 3 years ago. She had thought they were building something together. But Leon had been building a trap, and she had been too in love, too trusting, too exhausted to see it closing around her. Mara looked around the kitchen. The rent she paid it, the utilities she paid them, the groceries she bought them, the furniture she'd saved for it. Everything in this apartment existed because she worked herself to exhaustion. And Leon's debts never seemed to shrink. There were always more bills, more emergencies, more unexpected expenses. Except they weren't unexpected. They were Vivian. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Marco, her manager at the steakhouse. "Can you pick up a double tomorrow?" Lisa called in sick. "I know you're already doing breakfast and lunch, but we're desperate." She had already worked 6 days this week. 7, if she counted the cafe job she'd picked up last Sunday. Her body was breaking down. Her feet had started bleeding through her socks yesterday. Her wrists ached from carrying trays. She'd fallen asleep at a red light last week and woken up to someone honking behind her. But she had bills to pay. Leon's bills. Debts that were supposed to be temporary. A partnership that was supposed to be equal. No. The word formed in her mind like a crack of thunder. No. She wasn't going to do this anymore. She didn't know what she was going to do yet, didn't have a plan, didn't have a strategy, but she knew with absolute certainty that she would never work another shift to fund Leon's lies. She would never let him use her again. She would never be his ATM. Mara picked up her duffel bag from where it had fallen in the hallway. She walked back toward the bedroom, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Inside, Leon was still talking, still laughing with his friends about something else now. Sports, maybe, or cars. She didn't care. She didn't open the door. Instead, she walked past it to the second bedroom, the room Leon had claimed as his office 2 years ago. The room she never entered because he said he needed privacy to work on his resume, to apply for jobs, to network. Except he didn't work. That was another lie. Mara opened the door and turned on the light. The room was a disaster. Clothes piled in the corner, empty beer bottles on the desk. The expensive gaming chair he'd bought for ergonomics sat in front of a monitor still glowing with a paused video game. Papers scattered everywhere. She walked to the desk and started opening drawers, her hands moving with purpose now. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for, but she knew she'd find something. In the second drawer, under a stack of takeout menus, she found it. A credit card statement. Then another. Then another. The amounts made her stomach drop. $12,000 on this one. $18,000 on that one. $7,000 on another. And the charges, they were recent. Last week, 3 days ago, yesterday. Jewelry stores. Hotels she'd never been to. Restaurants she couldn't afford. A charge from a lingerie boutique. Vivienne. While Mara worked 5 jobs and ate ramen, Leon was taking another woman to hotels and buying her expensive gifts. And the debts weren't shrinking, they were growing. He was still spending, still gambling, based on the charges to online betting sites. Still going deeper into the hole while she killed herself trying to climb them both out. Mara pulled out her phone and started taking photos. Every statement, every receipt, every scrap of paper that showed what he'd been doing. Her hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped. The exhaustion had burned away, replaced by something cold and clear and focused. She had been asleep for 2 years, working herself to death in a dream she thought was real. Now she was awake, and Leon was going to regret the day he ever called her his personal ATM. Mara turned off the light and closed the office door behind her. She walked to the bathroom, the small guest bathroom Leon never used, and locked herself inside. She sat on the edge of the tub and opened her phone. She looked at the photos she'd just taken. Evidence, proof, ammunition. Then she opened her banking app. The joint checking account showed a balance of $1,247. Her paycheck from 2 days ago, plus tips from yesterday. Leon had already transferred $900 to his personal account, the one she didn't have access to, the one he said he needed to keep finances organized. She scrolled through the account history, transfer after transfer after transfer. Her money going in, his money going out. Thousands and thousands of dollars over 2 years. Her life, measured in stolen paychecks. Mara opened a new browser tab and searched for divorce lawyers in her area. Then she searched for financial advisors. Then for women's shelters, just in case. Then for storage facilities. Then for apartments she could afford on her own. She was making a list. She was making a plan. And she was going to take her life back. In the bedroom, Leon was still laughing. But that laughter had an expiration date, and Mara was going to make sure he knew exactly what it felt like to lose everything. Mara didn't sleep that night. She lay in the guest bedroom, the one with the uncomfortable futon and the broken blinds, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows move as cars passed on the street below. Every hour, she heard Leon stumble to the bathroom, heard the flush, heard him return to their bed. The bed she had been sharing with him for 4 years. The bed she would never sleep in again. At 4:30 a.m., her alarm went off. Time to get ready for the breakfast shift at the diner. Mara sat up and looked at her phone. The email to the divorce lawyer sat in her drafts folder. She had written it at 2:0 inches the morning, then deleted it, then written it again, then revised it 3 more times. She still hadn't sent it. Some part of her was afraid that once she sent it, everything would become real, irreversible. But it already was real. Leon had made it real when he called her his personal ATM, when he spent her money on another woman, when he laughed about her exhaustion with his friends. Mara pressed send. Then she got dressed in her work uniform, black pants, white button-down shirt, non-slip shoes that were falling apart. She pulled her hair into a ponytail and walked quietly toward the front door. Leon was snoring in the bedroom. He wouldn't wake up until noon. He never did. The drive to the diner took 20 minutes at this hour, before traffic started. Mara had made this drive so many times, she could do it with her eyes closed. She had done it with her eyes closed. Actually, last month she dozed off at a red light and woken up to someone laying on their horn behind her. She parked in the employee lot behind the diner and sat in her car for a moment. Through the windshield, she could see the kitchen lights already on, could see Pete the cook moving around inside, prep work for the morning rush. Mara worked as a waitress. She took orders, carried plates, refilled coffee cups, smiled at customers even when they were rude, cleaned up spills, and scraped leftover food into the trash. It wasn't the career she had dreamed of when she was younger. She had wanted to be a chef. She had been accepted to culinary school 6 years ago, had been ready to start her degree, ready to learn everything about food and flavor and the art of cooking. Then she met Leon. He was working as a line cook at an upscale restaurant, and he was good, creative, passionate, full of ideas. He told her she was talented. He told her she was beautiful. He told her he was going to open his own place someday, and he wanted her to be part of it. So when he asked her to postpone culinary school, to help him launch his food truck business just for a year, he said, "Just until we get established," she said yes. That was 6 years ago. The food truck never made it past the planning stage. Leon always had an excuse. The permits were too expensive. The location wasn't right. His partner backed out. The equipment was faulty. Someone else stole his concept. Mara stopped asking about it after the first year. By then, she was working full-time at the diner to support both of them. By then, Leon had convinced her that her culinary school dreams could wait, that they needed to be practical, that she was being selfish for wanting to spend money on tuition when they had rent to pay. But they didn't have debts back then. Not real ones. The debts came later, after the food truck failure, after Leon started gambling online, just to blow off steam, after he came home with tears in his eyes and promises on his lips. Mara got out of the car and walked into the diner through the back entrance. Her shift started in 5 minutes. She tied her apron around her waist and grabbed her order pad. The diner was the kind of place that served breakfast all day. Eggs, pancakes, hash browns, endless coffee. The regulars knew her by name. They asked about her life. She smiled and lied and told them everything was fine. "Morning, Mara," Pete called from the kitchen. "You look like hell." "Thanks, Pete. That's exactly what every girl wants to hear at 5 a.m. "I'm serious." He flipped a pancake without looking at it. "You working all 5 places today?" "4. I've got the day off from the cafe." "That's not a day off, kid. That's just slightly less insane." Mara tried to smile, but it felt wrong on her face. Pete had been working at this diner for 30 years. He knew exhaustion when he saw it. "You got a minute after the breakfast rush?" he asked. "Want to talk to you about something?" "Sure." The morning passed in a blur of orders and coffee refills. Mara moved on. Autopilot Table 3 wanted scrambled eggs. Table 7 needed more syrup. Table 12's bacon was too crispy. Table 5 left a mess their toddler had made. She smiled. She apologized. She cleaned. She carried. At 10:30, during the lull between breakfast and lunch, Pete waved her into the kitchen. "Sit," he said, pointing to a stool by the prep counter. Mara sat. Her feet were already aching. Pete poured 2 cups of coffee and handed her one. "How long you been working like this?" "All the jobs?" 2 years. "And it's for that husband of yours? The one with the failed food truck?" Mara didn't answer. She didn't need to. Pete had known her long enough to read the silence. "You know what my ex-wife used to say?" Pete asked. She said, "The only thing worse than being alone is being alone with someone who makes you feel alone." Mara stared into her coffee cup. "You're killing yourself for someone who doesn't deserve it," Pete continued. "And before you tell me it's none of my business, I'm making it my business because I've watched you come in here for 2 years, looking more dead every day." "I emailed a divorce lawyer this morning," Mara said quietly. Pete's eyebrows went up. "Yeah? I overheard Leon last night, talking to his friends about me." Her throat tightened. "He called me his personal ATM." Pete was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Good. Good? Good that you're getting out. You're one of the best waitresses I've ever had. Fast, efficient, never complains. But you're worth more than working yourself to death for someone else's mistakes." Mara felt something crack open in her chest. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to tell her it was okay to stop. "What do I do now?" she asked. "You keep showing up. You keep working. But you work for yourself now, not for him." Pete refilled her coffee. "And when this is over, when you've got your life back, you think about what you really want. Not what he wants. Not what you think you're supposed to want. What you want." Mara nodded, but she wasn't sure she remembered what that felt like, wanting something for herself. The rest of her shift dragged. Every time she looked at the clock, only minutes had passed. She took orders mechanically, her mind somewhere else, planning, calculating, trying to figure out how she was going to survive the next few months. At 11, she clocked out and walked to her car. She had 30 minutes to get across town to the sushi bar. Her phone buzzed. An email from the lawyer. "I received your message. I have availability Thursday at 6 p.m. if that works for you. Please bring any financial documents you have access to. Thursday at 6 p.m. That was during her steakhouse shift. She'd have to call in sick, which she'd never done in 2 years of working there. She typed back, "I'll be there." Then she started her car and drove across town to her second job of the day. Welcome to today's amazing story, my friends. Now, before we continue with this powerful story, kindly comment where you are watching from and what time it's at your end. And lastly, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Now let's continue. Mara hadn't always been this person, the woman who worked 5 jobs and ate ramen in her car between shifts. 6 years ago, she'd been someone different. Someone with dreams that belonged to her alone. She met Leon on a Tuesday night at Marcello's, the upscale Italian restaurant where she was working part-time while waiting for culinary school to start. He was the new line cook, and the entire kitchen staff buzzed about him, the way he moved with confident precision, how he could taste a sauce once and tell you exactly what it needed, the creative specials he'd pitched to the head chef. Mara had been taking a break in the alley behind the kitchen when he stepped out for air, his chef's whites spattered with marinara, his dark hair pushed back from his face. "You're the new server, right?" he'd said, pulling out a cigarette but not lighting it. "Mara? That's me. Leon," he smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. "Chef says you're going to culinary school. Institute of Culinary Arts, in 2 months." She'd been so excited she could barely contain it. "I've been saving for 3 years. That's incredible." He finally lit the cigarette, took a drag, then gestured at the kitchen door. "This business will chew you up and spit you out, but if you've got the passion for it, there's nothing else like it. I'm going to open my own place someday. Food truck first, then maybe a brick and mortar." They'd talked for 20 minutes that night, then every shift after. Within a month, they were dating. Within 3 months, she was in love. Leon was everything. She wasn't outgoing where she was reserved, bold where she was cautious, full of big dreams and bigger plans. He talked about his food truck concept like it was inevitable. Gourmet comfort food, Korean-Mexican fusion, a rotating menu that would keep customers coming back. He sketched logos on napkins. He taste-tested recipes in her tiny apartment kitchen. "We could do this together," he'd said one night, his eyes bright with possibility. "You and me. Partners." The word partners had sounded like a promise. So when he asked her to postpone culinary school just for 1 year, just to help him get the food truck launched, she'd said yes. They were building something together. They were a team. Her dreams could wait 12 months. Except 12 months became 24, then 36, then 72. The food truck never happened. First, the permits were too expensive. Then, the location fell through. Then, his business partner backed out. Then, the equipment supplier went bankrupt. There was always something, always a reason why they were still 6 months away from launching. And somewhere in that time, Leon stopped cooking altogether. He started spending his evenings online. Researching the market, he said. What he was really doing was gambling small bets at first, then larger ones. When the credit card bills started arriving, he'd cried and apologized and promised it would never happen again. "I just need help climbing out of this hole," he'd said, his voice breaking. "Then we'll get back on track. We'll launch the truck. You'll go to culinary school. This is just temporary." So Mara took on a second job, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. The diner at dawn, where she served coffee to construction workers and exhausted nurses. The sushi bar at lunch, where she learned to smile through customers who snapped their fingers at her. The steakhouse in the evening, where she carried heavy trays until her shoulders burned. The Italian restaurant on weekends, where she worked doubles and dreamed of the kitchen she'd once wanted to work in. The cafe on her days off, because there were no days off anymore. Her culinary school acceptance letter yellowed in a drawer, unopened renewal notices piling on top of it. She stopped seeing her sister Kayla, stopped going to the farmer's market on Sunday mornings, stopped cooking for pleasure because cooking had become just another reminder of everything she'd given up. Her hands, which were supposed to be learning to create beautiful things, learned instead to carry, to clean, to serve, to survive. And Leon's debts never shrank. They grew. Every time she thought they were making progress, another bill would appear, another emergency, another promise that this was the last time. Now, driving to the sushi bar with the lawyer's email still glowing on her phone, Mara finally understood. There had never been a food truck dream. There had never been a partnership. There had only been Leon's hunger and her willingness to feed it. She pulled into the parking lot and sat in her car, staring at the steering wheel. In 6 years, she had transformed from a woman with ambitions into an ATM with a pulse. She had traded her dreams for his excuses, her future for his comfort, her identity for his lies. And somewhere along the way, she had forgotten who she was supposed to become. The kitchen she'd imagined for herself bright, creative, alive with possibility, had become 5 different restaurants, where she smiled and served, and slowly disappeared. I hadn't married a dreamer, Mara thought, turning off the engine. I'd married a debt I could never repay. Mara couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest bedroom for 2 hours after her shift at the sushi bar, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to Leon snore in the next room. At 2 a.m., she gave up and walked back into the living room. The apartment looked different in the dark, less like a home and more like evidence. She stood in the center of the room and really looked at it for the first time in months. Beer bottles lined up on the coffee table, like Soldier's expensive craft beer, the kind that cost $8 a six-pack. Leon's running shoes sat by the door, top-of-the-line Nikes that cost more than she made in tips all week. A receipt from a steakhouse was crumpled on the side table. She picked it up and smoothed it flat. Dinner for 2. 800 osivoktive. She hadn't eaten at a restaurant in 2 years. She ate protein bars in her car and leftover rice from the sushi bar that would have been thrown away. Mara walked through the apartment like a detective at a crime scene, cataloging the evidence of her own erasure. His expensive watch on the kitchen counter, the leather jacket hanging in the closet, still with the tags on it, $340. A receipt from a jewelry store tucked into the pocket, 1 women's bracelet, $215. She had never received a bracelet. The laptop was sitting open on the desk in his office, the screen dark but not shut down. Mara's hand hovered over the trackpad. She had never looked at his computer before. He had always said he needed privacy for job applications, for networking, for professional correspondence. She clicked the trackpad. The screen blazed to life, no password required. He hadn't even bothered to hide it. The first thing she saw was an email chain with the subject line, Friday night plans. Can't wait to see you, baby. Wear that red dress I bought you. V. You know I will. Should I book the usual hotel? L. Already done. Room 412, like always. This time, bring that champagne I like. V. Mara's hands were shaking, but she forced them still. She opened the next email, then the next, then the next. 6 months of messages. Hotels every Friday, dinners at restaurants Mara had only seen in magazines. Gifts, dresses, perfume, jewelry, all purchased with money from the joint account. Her money, her tips, her 18-hour days. She opened another tab. His banking history. Transfers to DraftKings, deposits to online poker sites, withdrawals at casinos she didn't even know existed in the city. Thousands of dollars, just in the past 3 months. And then she found the gambling forum, still logged in. Username, Lucky Leon, 87. Latest post. Wife thinks I'm looking for work, lol. Meanwhile, I'm up $2K this week. She works 5 jobs and doesn't even check the account. Easy money. The replies were worse. Bro, you're living the dream. My girl would kill me if she found out. Just don't get caught, man. You got a good thing going." The numbness that had wrapped around Mara like a blanket since yesterday began to crack. Underneath it wasn't rage, not yet. It was something colder, clearer. Certainty. She pulled out her phone and started taking screenshots. Every email, every bank transfer, every gambling transaction, every message to Vivienne, every post on the forum. Her thumbs moved mechanically, precisely, documenting 2 years of lies in high-resolution images. She created a new folder on her phone. Evidence. Then, she opened a cloud storage account under an email address Leon didn't know about and uploaded everything. Backed it up twice. If he discovered what she was doing, if he tried to delete the evidence, it wouldn't matter. She had copies. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marco at the steakhouse. "Emergency. Can you cover Jenny's double tomorrow? I know you're already doing breakfast and lunch, but we're desperate." Mara stared at the message. 2 days ago, she would have said yes immediately. She would have canceled sleep, skipped meals, pushed her body past its limits, because that's what good employees did. That's what good wives did. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed, "No." Just that one word. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Marco replied immediately. "You sure? Time and a half?" "I'm sure. I can't tomorrow." "Okay, no problem. Thanks anyway." Something shifted in Mara's chest. A small thing, barely noticeable, but it was there, the first crack in the wall she'd built around herself. She looked back at Leon's laptop, at the evidence still glowing on the screen. The emails, the transactions, the bragging posts about his personal ATM. Mara opened the laptop further and took one final screenshot. Leon's latest bank transfer. He'd moved $900 from their joint account to his personal account just yesterday. The memo line read, "Weekend fun." She saved the image, backed it up to the cloud, and whispered into the dark apartment, "You'll never use me again." Then she closed the laptop, leaving it exactly as she'd found it, and walked back to the guest room. This time, she slept. Not well, but she slept. Because for the first time in 2 years, she had something Leon didn't know about. She had proof. She had power. And she had a plan forming in the quiet spaces between exhaustion and rage. Tomorrow, she would keep playing the role, the tired wife, the obedient worker. But inside, she was already someone different. Inside, she was already free. For 3 weeks, Mara played the perfect wife. She woke at 4:30 a.m. and made Leon's coffee before she left for her breakfast shift. She did his laundry, folded his clothes, washed his dishes. She smiled tiredly when he complained about being bored. She nodded when he talked about promising leads for jobs that didn't exist. But inside, she was building an escape route, brick by brick. The secret bank account came first. She opened it online during her lunch break at the sushi bar, using her mother's address for the statements. It took 15 minutes and felt like a revolution. When the account number appeared on the screen, she stared at it for a full minute, memorizing the digits like a prayer. Then came the cash tips. Every night at the steakhouse, the Italian restaurant, the cafe, she started pocketing half her tips before counting out for the night. 20s, 10s, 5s, crumpled singles. She hid them in a tampon box under the guest bathroom sink, somewhere Leon would never look. By the end of the first week, she had $340 hidden away. By the end of the second week, $680. The evidence folder on her phone grew thicker. She added new screenshots whenever Leon left his laptop open, more gambling transactions, more messages to Vivienne planning their Friday night dates, more forum posts bragging about his setup. She documented everything: the jewelry store receipts, the hotel charges, the cash withdrawals that happened like clockwork every Thursday. At night, after Leon fell asleep, she researched divorce lawyers. She read reviews, compared fees, made notes about which ones specialized in financial infidelity. She bookmarked articles about separating joint debt, protecting personal assets, documenting marital misconduct. She was building a case against her own husband, and it felt like breathing for the first time in years. "You're different lately," Elsa said during the afternoon lull at the diner. Elsa was 57, had worked as a waitress for 30 years, and could read people like headlines. She refilled the ketchup bottles while Mara rolled silverware. "Different how?" Mara asked, not looking up. "Quieter. But not tired. Quiet. Something else." Elsa set down a bottle and looked at her directly, planning quiet. Mara's hand stilled on the napkin she was folding. "It's the husband, isn't it?" Elsa continued. "The one with all the debt? How did you—" "Honey, I've been doing this job since before you were born. I know what it looks like when someone's working themselves to death for a man who doesn't deserve it." Elsa sat down across from her. "My second husband was like that. Charming as hell, couldn't hold a job, always had some excuse why his problems were my responsibility. What did you do?" "I left. Took me 3 years to work up the courage, but I left." Elsa reached across and squeezed Mara's hand. "Men like that don't stop taking until you stop giving. And by the time you realize it, they've taken everything. Your money, your time, your dreams, sometimes even your sense of who you are." Mara felt her throat tighten. "I'm figuring it out." "Good." Elsa stood and went back to the ketchup bottles. "And when you need help, really need it, you tell me. I've got a spare room and a baseball bat with his name on it." Despite everything, Mara smiled. But Leon was getting suspicious. "Where's all the money going?" he demanded one morning, waving the bank statement at her. "The account's lower than usual." "I don't know," Mara lied smoothly. "Maybe the utilities went up. I need $300 today." "For what?" His eyes flashed. "Does it matter? It's our money, Mara. Our account. I don't have $300 in cash." "Then get it from somewhere." He threw the statement on the counter. "I have expenses." Vivienne, Mara thought. "You have Vivienne." But she just nodded and said, "I'll see what I can do." That afternoon, she transferred her entire paycheck from the steakhouse, $890, into her secret account instead of the joint one. She left just enough in the joint account to cover the mortgage. Leon would notice eventually, but by the time he did, she'd be ready. She sat in her car outside the bank, staring at the confirmation screen on her phone. Account balance, $2,247. Not much, but it was hers. Untouchable. The beginning of a new life. Every dollar she saved was another brick in the wall between them. A wall he couldn't see yet, but one that was growing higher every single day. Soon it would be too high for him to climb. Soon she would be on the other side of it, and he would be exactly where he deserved to be. Alone with his debts and his lies, Mara started the car and drove to her next shift, the hidden money burning like a secret in her pocket. Every dollar I saved was another brick in the wall between us. The explosion came on a Thursday morning. Mara was in the kitchen making coffee before her breakfast shift when Leon stormed in, his phone clutched in his hand, his face twisted with rage. "What the hell is this?" He shoved the phone in her face. The banking app was open, showing the joint account balance. $247. "That's our account," Mara said calmly, pouring water into the coffee maker. "Where's the rest of the money? Your paycheck from the steakhouse should have been deposited 3 days ago. Where is it?" "I moved it." "You what?" His voice went up an octave. "You moved it where?" "Somewhere you can't touch it." Leon stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "That's our money, Mara. You can't just—" "My money," she corrected, still not raising her voice. "From my jobs, that I work, while you sit here and gamble it away." His face went pale, then red. "I don't know what you—" "Save it." Mara turned to face him fully, her back against the counter. "I know everything, Leon. The gambling, The credit cards. Vivienne. The name landed like a slap. Leon's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Who told you? You did. That night, 3 weeks ago, when you were on speakerphone with your friends, bragging about your personal ATM. She said it without emotion, like she was reciting a grocery list. I heard every word. Babe, listen. He reached for her, but she stepped aside. Don't. You're tired. You've been working too hard. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in 2 years. Mara picked up her work apron from the back of the chair and slowly untied it, wiping away a grease stain from yesterday's shift. The motion was deliberate, almost ritualistic, erasing evidence of servitude one spot at a time. I've been paying your debts while you took my money to date another woman. While you laughed about me with your friends. While you posted on gambling forums about how easy it was to use me. Leon's face cycled through emotions, shock, anger, calculation. Okay. I messed up. I admit it. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll get help for the gambling. You'll what? Get a job? Mara folded the apron and set it on the table. Next to it, she placed a manila envelope she'd been carrying in her purse for 2 days. It's too late for that. Leon stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. What is that? Divorce papers. The word hung in the air between them, heavy and final. You're insane. Leon's voice cracked. You can't divorce me. We're married. We made vows. We're supposed to work through problems together. We were never together, Leon. I was working, and you were taking. I made mistakes. People make mistakes. His voice was rising, desperation bleeding through the anger. You can't just throw away our marriage because you called me your slave. Mara's voice was still calm, still steady, but there was steel underneath it now. Because you stole from me? Because you cheated on me? Which one of those should I forgive? Don't do this. Leon's hands were shaking. Please, I need you. I can't. The debts are in your name. The lawyer already checked. She picked up her purse from the counter. The credit cards, the gambling losses, all of it. Legally, none of it is my responsibility. You're leaving me with nothing. No, Mara said quietly. I'm leaving you with exactly what you earned. Leon lunged forward and grabbed her wrist. You're not going anywhere until we... Mara didn't flinch. She looked down at his hand on her wrist, then up at his face. When she spoke, her voice was ice. Let go of me, right now. Mara, let go, or I walk straight to the police station and show them the evidence I have. The gambling transactions, the money you stole from the joint account, the messages to Vivienne, all of it. She held his gaze, unblinking. Your choice. Leon's hand fell away like she'd burned him. Mara stepped back, adjusting her purse on her shoulder. I already moved my things out. Everything I'm taking is mine. Clothes, books, things I bought with my own money. The furniture, the TV, all the stuff you bought with money you stole from me, you can keep it. Where are you going? That's none of your business. You can't do this to me! Leon's voice broke completely. I love you! Mara looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. Not love, not hate, not even pity. Just a vast, empty relief. You never loved me, Leon. You loved what I could do for you. She walked to the door and picked up the single suitcase she'd hidden in the hall closet that morning. There's a difference. Mara, please. But she was already opening the door, already stepping into the hallway, already breathing air that didn't smell like his lies. Behind her, Leon was still talking, still pleading, his words tumbling over each other in panic and desperation. Mara didn't hear them. She was already gone. For the first time in years, I left a room without looking back. 3 months later, Mara woke up to the smell of fresh bread. Her apartment was small, a studio on the 5th floor above Alma's bakery, but the rent was cheap, and the windows let in morning light that made everything look possible. She lay in bed for a moment, listening to the sounds of the bakery opening below, The rumble of the ovens, the murmur of early customers, the bell above the door chiming each arrival. For the first time in years, she didn't have to be anywhere until noon. She'd quit 4 of her 5 jobs the week after she left Lyon, kept only the steakhouse, where Marco had immediately promoted her to assistant manager when he learned she had availability. The pay was better. The hours were reasonable. She had Sundays off. Sundays. An entire day that belonged to her. Mara got out of bed and made coffee in the small kitchen that was just hers. No one else's dishes in the sink. No one else's mess on the counter. She sat at the tiny table by the window and opened her laptop. Her culinary school application was almost complete. She'd been working on it for 2 months, filling it out in careful increments. Her work history, her essay about why she wanted to cook, her references from Pete at the diner and Marco at the steakhouse. The tuition was still daunting, but she had savings now, real savings, in an account with only her name on it. She was $4,000 away from the first semester. At her current rate, she'd have it by spring. The thought made her chest feel both tight and expansive at once. There were hard days still. Nights when the apartment felt too quiet and she caught herself listening for Leon's voice, even though she didn't want to hear it. Moments when she saw couples at the steakhouse, laughing together, and felt the ache of loneliness settle in her bones. Times when doubt crept in and whispered that maybe she'd made a mistake. Maybe she should have tried harder. Maybe she was being selfish. But then she'd remember his voice through the bedroom door. My personal ATM. And the doubt would evaporate. Small victories accumulated like the money in her savings account. She bought herself new shoes, good ones that didn't hurt after a full shift. She got a haircut at an actual salon instead of trimming it herself over the bathroom sink. She called her sister Kayla and talked for 2 hours, crying and laughing and finally explaining everything. I'm so proud of you, Kayla had said. I'm so damn proud of you. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Mara opened it to find Luis, the bakery owner, holding a paper bag and a cup of coffee. Morning, he said with his usual gentle smile. You left your wallet on the counter yesterday. Figured you'd need it. Oh, God, thank you. Mara took the wallet, embarrassed. I've been so scattered lately. You're doing fine. Better than fine. Luis handed her the bag. Conscious, fresh out of the oven. You mentioned they were your favorite. He was in his 50s, with silver threading through his black hair and flour, permanently dusted on his apron. His wife had passed away 5 years ago, and he'd poured his grief into the bakery, turning it into something warm and welcoming. He'd given Mara the apartment at below-market rent when he learned she was leaving her husband. I can't keep accepting free food from you, Mara said, though she took the bag gratefully. You can, and you will. That's what neighbors do. He started to leave, then paused. You know, I'm catering a small event next week, a birthday party. Could use an extra pair of hands if you're interested. Pays cash, and it's good practice if you're serious about culinary school. Mara blinked. You'd trust me to help cater? I've tasted your cooking, remember? That pozole you made last month? You've got instincts most culinary graduates don't have, he smiled. Think about it. No pressure. After he left, Mara sat on her bed and opened the bag. The conchas were still warm, the sugar topping perfectly caramelized. She took a bite and closed her eyes. When was the last time someone had done something kind for her without expecting anything in return? That afternoon, she went to the kitchen store she used to walk past on her way between jobs, the one with the expensive knife sets and copper pots in the window. She'd always been too rushed or too broke to go inside. Today, she walked in and bought a chef's knife. Nothing extravagant, a good, solid 8-inch blade that felt right in her hand. The salesperson showed her how to hold it properly, how to rock it for chopping, how to care for it. That night, in her tiny kitchen, Mara cooked for herself. Not ramen, not leftovers, real food. She diced vegetables with her new knife, the rhythm meditative. She sautéed garlic until her apartment smelled like possibility. She made a simple pasta dish with fresh tomatoes and basil she'd bought at the farmer's market that morning. She plated it carefully, poured herself a glass of water, and sat down at her table. The first bite tasted like joy. She'd forgotten this feeling, the simple pleasure of creating something with her own hands, of nourishing herself instead of just surviving. The kitchen had stopped being a place of exhaustion and obligation. It was becoming something else again, something sacred. Luis knocked on her door around 8. "Sorry to bother you, but I thought you'd want to know the streetlight outside is out again, and it gets dark on the stairs. Be careful when you come home late. Thanks for the heads up. Also," he added almost shy, "I could smell what you were cooking from downstairs." Whatever it was, my entire evening crowd was asking about it. Mara laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere genuine. "It was just pasta." "No such thing as just pasta when it smells that good." He grinned. "Think about the catering gig, okay? I meant what I said." After he left, Mara stood at her window and looked out at the street below. The bakery was closing for the night, the last customers leaving with white boxes tied with string. The streetlights were flickering on. The city was settling into its evening rhythm. She thought about Leon, briefly, wondered if he was still in their old apartment, still gambling, still lying to whoever would listen. Then she let the thought go. He was no longer her problem. He was barely even a memory. Freedom was quieter than I expected, Mara thought, turning back to her small, warm apartment. But it was mine. 6 months after leaving Leon, Mara enrolled in a free online business course through the community college. She took the classes late at night after her shifts, her laptop propped on her kitchen table, learning about profit margins and inventory management and business plans. The instructor's voice droned through her earbuds while she took notes in a spiral notebook, underlining key concepts, sketching ideas in the margins. She was learning how to build something that couldn't be taken from her. At the steakhouse, Marco called her into his office on a Tuesday afternoon. "Corporate approved it," he said, sliding a paper across his desk. "You're officially head of operations. Salary, benefits, the whole package. You've earned it." Mara stared at the offer letter, at the number that was more than she'd made working 5 jobs combined. "Marco, I don't know what to say." "Say yes. You've been running this place better than I have for months," he smiled. "Plus, I need someone I trust. We're opening a 2nd location next year, and I want you to help me launch it." She said yes. The promotion meant she could finally afford therapy. Once a week, she sat in Dr. Chen's office and untangled 2 years of manipulation, learning to recognize the patterns she'd missed, understanding how love could become a prison when you weren't paying attention. "You're not responsible for saving people who don't want to save themselves," Dr. Chen told her during one session. "That's not loyalty, that's self-destruction." The words settled into Mara like seeds waiting to grow. At work, she noticed a new waitress, struggling a young girl named Sophie, maybe 22, who flinched every time someone raised their voice. She dropped trays, mixed up orders, apologized constantly, even when nothing was her fault. Mara recognized herself in that fear. "Hey," she said one evening after the dinner rush. "You got a minute?" Sophie looked terrified. "Did I do something wrong?" "No. I wanted to tell you you're doing better than you think." Mara pulled out a chair. "I know it's overwhelming. I've been there. But you're capable. You just need to believe it." Sophie's eyes welled up. "My boyfriend keeps telling me I'm going to get fired, that I'm not cut out for this." Mara's jaw tightened. "Is he helping pay your bills?" "No. He says he's between jobs." "Then his opinion doesn't matter." Mara leaned forward. "Sophie, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. Don't work yourself to death for someone who won't do the same for you. If he's not building you up, he's tearing you down. There's no in between." Sophie stared at her, something shifting behind her eyes. "Think about it," Mara said, standing. "And if you ever need to talk, I'm here." 2 weeks later, Sophie came in with a new confidence. She'd moved out of her boyfriend's apartment and into a place with roommates. She was standing taller, smiling more. She reminded Mara that escaping was possible, that she'd made the right choice. Kayla drove down from Sacramento on a Sunday, their first visit in 3 years. They met at a cafe and talked for 4 hours, filling in the gaps Leon had created between them. "I wanted to say something," Kayla admitted. "Every time I visited, I could see you disappearing, but you seemed so committed to making it work, and I didn't want to be the sister who judged." "I wish you had," Mara said. "Maybe I would have woken up sooner. You woke up when you were ready. That's what matters." Kayla squeezed her hand. "I'm just glad I have you back." They made plans to have dinner once a month. Mara felt a piece of herself slot back into place, the piece that remembered she had people who loved her without conditions. Leon's messages started in month 7. "I'm sorry. I miss you. Can we talk? I got help. I'm not gambling anymore. Please give me another chance. You were right about everything. I was a terrible husband, but I can change." Mara read each one, felt nothing, and deleted them without responding. He didn't deserve her words. He didn't deserve her time. He'd had 2 years of both and had wasted them. She blocked his number after the 5th message. The email came on a Wednesday morning while she was reviewing inventory orders. Subject: Small Business Grant Application. Approved. Mara's hands froze on the keyboard. She'd applied 3 months ago on a whim, after Luis mentioned a city program that funded aspiring food entrepreneurs. The grant was for $15,000 seed money for equipment, permits, initial inventory. She'd written the application at midnight, pouring her ideas onto the page. A food stall specializing in elevated comfort food, dishes inspired by the 5 restaurants where she'd worked, affordable prices for working people who deserved better than fast food. She'd called it the 5th shift. Dear Miss Reyes, congratulations! After careful review, your application for the small business grant has been selected for funding. Your concept demonstrated both innovation and community impact. We believe the 5th shift has strong potential for success. Please contact our office to schedule your orientation meeting. Mara read the email 3 times to make sure it was real. Then she called Kayla, who screamed so loud Mara had to hold the phone away from her ear. Then she told Marco, who opened a bottle of champagne in his office at 10 a.m. Then she knocked on Luis's door and showed him the email, and he pulled her into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and pride. "I knew you could do it," he said. "I knew it the moment I tasted your cooking." That night, Mara sat in her apartment, with her business notebooks spread across the table. She sketched menu ideas, calculated startup costs, imagined a small stall at the farmer's market, with a line of customers waiting for food made with care. 6 years ago, Leon had asked her to postpone her dreams to fund his. She'd said yes because she thought that's what partners did. But this dream, this plan, this grant, this future was different. This time, the dream was mine alone to fund. 1 year later, Mara walked into the Metro Convention Center carrying a portfolio of menu samples and a confidence she'd built from scratch. The Regional Food Expo was massive rows of vendors showcasing equipment, ingredients, services. Restaurant owners mingled with food truck operators and catering companies. Mara was here to pitch the 5th shift to potential suppliers, to make connections, to prove her concept could scale beyond the farmer's market stall she'd been running for 6 months. She'd already secured meetings with 3 distributors. Her food had been featured in a local blog. People were starting to know her name. She was reviewing her notes when she saw him. Leon was behind a portable bar setup, wearing a black polo shirt with a liquor company's logo embroidered on the chest. He was pouring samples of craft whiskey for passers-by, his smile forced and hollow. He looked thinner, older. His hair needed cutting. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. Mara's first instinct was to turn around, to avoid him entirely. But something stopped her, not curiosity. Exactly. More like the pull of completing a circle, She walked toward the bar. Leon looked up, mid-pour, and froze. The whiskey overflowed the sample cup, spilling onto the counter. Mara? Leon. Her voice was neutral, professional. He set down the bottle with shaking hands, grabbing a towel to wipe up the spill. What are you? Are you? I'm here for the expo. I'm launching a food business. You are? Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe pride, maybe regret. That's great. Really great. An awkward silence stretched between them. Expo goers flowed around them like water around stones. You look good, Leon said finally. Different, happy. I am. I heard you got a grant. Someone mentioned it at another event. The Fifth Shift, right? That's a good name. He was rambling now, nervous energy spilling out. I've been doing this bartending thing for a few months. It's not much, but it's honest work. I'm trying to, get back on my feet. Mara nodded but didn't respond. Listen, Leon glanced around, lowered his voice. I owe you an apology. A real one. I was a terrible husband, worse than terrible. I used you. I lied to you. I took advantage of your kindness. His eyes were wet now. I've been in therapy. Gamblers Anonymous. I'm 6 months sober from betting. I'm trying to be better. That's good, Leon. I hope it works out for you. Is there any chance? He stopped, swallowed hard. I know I don't deserve it, but is there any chance we could try again? Start over? I'm different now. I could prove it to you. Mara looked at him, really looked at him, and felt the ghost of who she used to be. The woman who would have said yes because she believed in second chances, because she thought love meant endless forgiveness, because she didn't know her own worth. That woman was gone. Leon, I'm glad you're getting help. I genuinely mean that. Addiction is real, and recovery is hard. She kept her voice gentle but firm. But we're not getting back together. Not now, not ever. Please. I know I messed up, but you didn't mess up. You made choices. Every single day for 2 years, you chose to use me. You chose to laugh about it with your friends. You chose to spend my money on another woman while I worked myself to exhaustion. She paused. Those weren't mistakes, Leon. That was who you were. I've changed. Maybe you have, but that doesn't erase what you did, and it doesn't mean I owe you anything. Leon's face crumpled. I lost everything because of you. The apartment, the furniture, my credit. No, Mara's voice turned to steel. You lost everything because of you. I just stopped enabling it. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Some part of him finally understood there was nothing left to say. I have a meeting, Mara said, checking her watch. I need to go. Mara, wait. She turned back one last time. You already apologized, she said quietly. When you lost me, the words hung in the air between them, the same words she'd imagined saying for months, back when the wound was still fresh. But now they didn't carry rage or triumph, just simple truth. Leon stared at her, understanding finally settling over his features. Mara walked away, weaving through the crowd toward the meeting room where her future waited. She didn't look back, didn't check to see if he was watching. It didn't matter anymore. Behind her, Leon was still standing at his bartending station, still pouring samples for strangers, still living in the wreckage he'd created. But Mara was already gone, not just from the conversation, but from that entire chapter of her life. She'd spent a year building something new, something that couldn't be taken or tarnished or stolen. She'd become someone who knew her worth, who chose herself first, who understood that some doors stayed closed for good reason. The meeting went well. The distributor loved her concept, offered favorable terms, talked about expansion possibilities. Mara took notes, asked questions, negotiated like the businesswoman she'd become. Later, walking back to her car, she realized she felt lighter. Not because she'd confronted Leon, she'd done that the day she left, but because she'd finally closed the door she'd been holding half open without realizing it. The small part of her that had wondered if leaving was the right choice, that had questioned whether she'd been too harsh, too unforgiving, that part was finally quiet. She'd made the right choice, the only choice. He was still standing where I left him, but I was already gone. The dinner rush was in full swing when Mara stepped through the kitchen doors of her restaurant. The air hit her first garlic sizzling in olive oil, fresh rosemary releasing its perfume as it met heat, bread pulling from the oven with that perfect crackling sound that meant the crust was exactly right. The kitchen hummed with controlled chaos, Chef Marcus calling out orders, line cooks responding in rhythm, plates sliding across the pass with precision timing. "Chef Mara!" Sophia, the sous chef she'd mentored from dishwasher to second in command, waved a spatula in greeting. "Table 8 wants to compliment the braised short ribs personally." Mara smiled, wiping her hands on her apron. 2 years ago, she'd opened the 5th shift with the grant money, a small loan, and every ounce of courage she'd saved alongside her cash tips. The name honored the 5 restaurants where she'd once worked herself to exhaustion, but now, instead of symbols of survival, they represented something else entirely. Resilience, transformation, proof that breaking could lead to rebuilding. The dining room glowed warm under Edison bulbs strung across exposed brick walls. Laughter bubbled from corner booths. Silverware clinked against ceramic plates she'd chosen herself sturdy, beautiful, affordable to replace. Every detail had been her decision, from the reclaimed wood tables to the chalkboard menu that changed with the seasons. On the wall behind the host stand hung a photograph. Mara in her old diner uniform, exhausted eyes staring at the camera, apron stained from a double shift. Beneath it, a small brass plaque read, "For every woman who worked too hard for someone who didn't deserve her." Customers often stopped to read it. Sometimes they took photos. Once, a young woman stood in front of it crying, then left Mara a note with her dinner check. "Thank you for showing me it gets better." Mara moved through the dining room, greeting regulars by name, checking that new guests felt welcomed. Mrs. Chin from the flower shop 2 doors down was celebrating her granddaughter's graduation. The Rodrigo family, her first ever customers, sat at their usual table by the window. "Everything perfect tonight?" Mara asked, pausing beside them. "Always is," Mr. Rodrigo said, raising his glass. "You've built something special here, chef." The words settled into her chest, warm and earned. Back in the kitchen, she plated the final orders of the evening herself. Muscle memory from years of carrying trays, now transformed into the art of presentation. Garnish placed just so. Sauce drizzled with intention. Every plate leaving her kitchen was a small promise kept. At 10 p.m., after the last customers left and the staff finished cleanup, Mara sat alone at the corner table by the front window. The street outside was quiet, streetlights casting soft halos on the pavement. She could see the bakery across the street where Luis had just turned off the lights. A moment later, he appeared at her door, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Thought you might need this," he said, settling into the chair across from her. "Busy night?" "The best kind of busy." She wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "Thank you. For this, for everything." Luis smiled, that gentle smile of his. "You did this yourself, Mara. I just gave you a place to land when you needed it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching occasional cars pass, the city breathing its nighttime rhythm around them. Mara thought about everything that had brought her here, the pain, the exhaustion, the moment she'd overheard Leon's voice through the bedroom door, the fear of leaving, the terror of starting over, the slow, difficult work of rebuilding a life from scattered pieces. She thought about Sophie, now her head waitress, who'd left her own toxic relationship last year, about the women who stopped her on the street to say her story had given them courage, about the framed uniform on the wall, a reminder not of suffering, but of strength. Once, she'd worked 5 restaurants just to survive, pouring everything into someone else's bottomless needs. Now, she had one dream, and it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.